Three, two, one.
You're listening to Two Babies in a Business, a podcast about business, marketing, growth, strategy, staff, clients, babies, and marriage. I'm Christina. This is Peter. We're the founders and leaders of CIPR Communications.
And today we're continuing on our series on whether you should hire in-house versus hiring an agency. And we're getting down to the fun nitty-gritty of things, which is building your job description.
Yes.
And this is something that actually I want to, just before we kind of get into it, is something that we've, I think, become better at as an agency, thanks in a large part to our coach, Steve. Again, we mentioned before that find, grind, and mind activity. And I would really encourage people to think about that activity prior to building any kind of job description, because when you do that find, grind, mind activity, you all of a sudden can see you can see where their opportunities are, or what that job might just come out of that, doing that activity. But yeah, that's a good place to start, is kind of where are your gaps and what do those look like, and what skills and how busy are people, and where do you go from there?
Yeah, I would start this off. I've alluded to this a few times in this series of like what not to do. So it's like, don't take all of the things that you just identified as gaps and throw them into one job description and send it out and see what you get. I think think really rationally about what you think the skill set of an individual could be. And, for sure, start with putting them all down and maybe start with that. But have your team, have someone who you trust. So in our case, our business coach looks through our job descriptions before we send them out, to just have that sober second opinion and second thought. If you're working with an agency that you trust, they can be someone to have that second look. I mean, we have another guest star again today, Max. I feel like he was in my grill the other day. Now he's in yours.
Max is our dog. He's
Max
just
our dog.
Say hello.
He's coming to say hi. But yeah, have those few trusted advisors to look at it and give you that opinion of, this is unreasonable, or hey, this sounds like two people, or whatever. And I actually think a really good place to start, I don't know if you agree with this, Peter, is what's your budget? Are you hiring a $65,000 a year individual? Is this a $40,000? Do you have more? So you've identified those gaps, but just understanding that budget number that you're playing with, because that's going to dictate too. If you have room to hire someone strategic internally and that makes sense for you, great. If you have room potentially to hire two great tacticians, that's great. Maybe one tactician's a graphic designer, maybe the other one's, a social expert or content creator. So I think there's lots of ways to slice and dice it, but don't just try to hire someone at 50 grand that does everything and can do everything. I think that's the biggest mistake I see people make. I was talking to, Brad, who works with us. He had a friend who was applying for different positions, and she had let him know that she was interviewing for this particular job, and he literally wanted her to do everything, the entire role of a marketing team. And she said there was no way I could come out of that job interview feeling good, because while I'm very comfortable in my skill set as a marketer, I don't do photos. I don't do graphic design. And there was no room even in that conversation to be talking about external help for those things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And if you're if you have doubts about this, maybe reach out to an agency and obviously, you can engage them on an hourly basis to help you kind of craft a job description, help you think through these things. Potentially, a lot of agencies, I'm sure we would help you for free, if it's just a little bit of advice. If you don't know, go ask, go seek some help, because again, Christina is right. And if you put like if you put, oh, we want a person to do absolutely everything related to marketing, and you have a job description that's, you know, every skill set they possibly could have, you're number one, most people are just going to like not even apply. And then the people that will apply, I mean, they're going to be great people, I'm sure, that are full of hope and dreams, but probably are not going to be set up for success. And so, you know, if you don't know, reach out to an agency, reach out to a few agencies, ask some questions, get some advice. We know, we do this, we hire, we work with people. We've had, you know, unsuccessful hires, we've learned. And we're happy to offer advice because, you know, likely, and as I think we're alluding to in this series, is that you're likely going to need a person plus an agency most of the time, or many of the times, depending, of course, how big your company is and budgets. But, you know, any company over $1 million in revenue is likely going to need both. Like, let's just be kind of frank about that.
Yep.
And, you know, if you're thinking of working with an agency, or you already work with an agency and you need to hire a person in-house, like, go ask. That agency will be more than happy to give you the greatest advice possible to help them succeed as well, right? It's in everybody's interest to hire somebody and have them succeed, because the cost of a bad hire isn't just, you know, oh, you've paid this person and you didn't get, you know, the results you were looking for. That's a huge cost, but it's like the time to rehire. You're talking about a 6-month minimum loss of time that you could be, you know, achieving some success. So it really matters a lot. And the other thing is, you know, really think about attitude, and like, are you hiring purely for skill? Are you hiring for attitude, for like ability and willingness to learn, for flexibility, right? Like we just were after this interview, or after this podcast, we're interviewing somebody, and we put in our job description that we're looking for somebody that's entrepreneurial. And that's important to us because our staff need to be entrepreneurial with our clients and think like entrepreneurs, because they're working largely with entrepreneurs, right? And that's an important skill set. And it's not necessarily a skill per se, a technical skill, but it's an attitude and it's an approach. And I think that's probably more important than a very hard skill for me, is that attitude, that approach, that sort of that nimbleness, because we're in a fast-paced world and lots is changing all the time. And you know, we as an agency hire people that are very capable in one field generally, and are really capable as project managers, more importantly. And then we work with consultants all the time and our staff work with consultants all the time on our stuff and on our client work. And we don't expect our staff to be, you know, the utmost experts on every single thing. And it's not realistic to do that. So, you know, are you hiring for attitude? Are you hiring for skill? That's an important question to ask. And your job description should really be reflective of, you know, one track or the other, right? And you should be consistent throughout your job description. So, you know, can't talk about how skill and all this is important, but then also ask for, you know, all this technical ability, right? So.
No, it's true. I think you need to, when you're thinking about building a job description for your marketing position that you're hiring for, I think it's like, how I would break it down is start with like, what are like the 2 or 3 functions of this individual, right? So is this individual a webmaster? Is this, right, is your website updates and projects and that piece highly critical to this role? Is this person a strategist and, you know, advisor on the marketing? Is this person a, like you said, a project manager? Like, try to bucket the actual roles that you want this marketing individual to play first, right? So instead of going, oh, I need a marketing advisor, that means all these bullet points. If you were to like truly break down what you need in an individual, and, you know, the sky's the limit, like, what roles do you actually see this person playing? And I think it becomes even more important on a smaller team, because probably you have one person playing multiple roles. You know, I think this becomes more essential when you think about larger teams in terms of splitting up work, in terms of, keeping people in their lanes. So again, an important exercise there, but I mean, start there. What are the 3 most important things that this person needs to have covered? And then I think it's about, like you said, okay, what are the technical abilities and standard job description and listing the things out. But what I found really interesting is adding kind of the bonus points section, right? So like in an ideal world, if this hire that you're thinking about, who has these 3 main roles, has these technical abilities, if they had some sort of ability in photography, that would be considered an asset and a bonus to the role. It's not required, but hey, if you had a really keen eye for that, that would be amazing. Or if you have, maybe you're thinking about a website project in the next 6 months, maybe that bonus, you don't need a website project manager today, but as you're thinking down the line about those particular gaps on your team, maybe the gap is that project. So maybe a bonus skill set is experience in implementation of web projects, or right, like, so in the last episode we asked you to like bucket out those gaps. So like, are there things you can work into a job description that are in the future or potentially, something that will supplement but aren't actually listed as a part of this person's actual role? I think too, that helps you in the interview process. One, you're not going to run into a situation where no one you interview actually has the skill set you are looking for.
Right. Because nobody will.
Because nobody will. But 2, you may find someone like super interesting that like does photography as a side hustle and like wouldn't mind also taking photos sometimes for work. Like, I think sometimes we just need to be more creative in how we pull together a job description. And I mean, I love your conversation about cultural fit, because I think that's important. I think if you're already working with an agency too, so important to be upfront in a job description about that, right? Like experience working with agencies, or this role will play a part in, making this relationship work or not. Or maybe you're not working with an agency, but you're thinking about how to incorporate it in the future. It's, hey, this role will need to work well with suppliers and contractors, and those are all important, really transparent things to put into a job description. And then I think, one of my favorite lines from our most recent job description for CIPR was like you have a great GIF game, GIF or GIF, whatever you call it. But it's like, that's how like we can, our company, we like throw WhatsApp messages to each other all day long. And, frankly, there's a lot of little funny GIFs going back and forth. And like, that's important. Like that means, it's a very subtle part of our corporate culture, but what are those little things? Like, I remember in one of my old jobs, we used to watch, we used to like gather in the conference room and watch videos once a week. I guess like DVDs or whatever. And that was an important part of culture and bonding. So it's like, do you have a love for, team building time in front of the big screen, or right? Like, I think there's really interesting ways to make your job description stand out and speak to your culture to find the right fit.
Yeah. And I guess the last point on this is that like, and this again, my bias is coming through, but like, it's much more important to hire for cultural fit and attitude and sort of like, I guess those 2 things than skill, in my opinion, because there's a lot of people out there with a lot of technical abilities who are consultants and contractors or whatever. So photography is a great example. I mean, it's not hard to hire somebody that can do photography for you. And it's not like you're going to be doing photography, 7 days a week, 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. Right. Like, so, if you put, that's so important for somebody to have photography skills, and then you hire somebody because they do, but they have a poor attitude or they don't fit culture, it's like, it's not going to work. Right. So, that's just my bias. I think attitude and cultural fit is pretty much, 85% of the battle.
Yeah.
And having the right skills, that are the things that the person's going to do, 85-90% of the time, day to day, is really what you should be hiring for, not the, every skill under the sun and things that they might do once every 6 years. Right.
No, I think that's important, right? Like, because sometimes you get in this like loop in your head where it's like, I need it, like, so someone needs to be able to take great pictures. And it's like, really, how often are you taking pictures?
Like, that's an issue on your mind today for the next
Yeah.
week, maybe, or two, but like,
Yeah.
what's the really core role that this person needs to fill?
Yeah. So I mean, a big thing, just to recap, is like, be realistic. And if you don't know how to be realistic in a marketing job description, engage someone who you know can be, whether that's somebody else on your internal team, whether that's a business coach, whether that's the agency you're actually working with at the time or one you're interested in working with, whether that's somebody else in the space that you know has hired. But like, the amount of unrealistic marketing and communications job descriptions that sit on job boards, even right now as we speak, are incredible. And I just think it sets all parties up for failure. And I think, in that too, really considering your budget and who you want in-house and not. So some of the gap conversation we had last time, it's like, if you have the budget to hire someone strategic and that matters to you internally, great. If you have the budget to hire someone strategic, but you think that potentially an agency could cover that, well, now maybe you're talking about having 2 tacticians in-house for that same budget.
Yeah.
So, don't pigeonhole yourself immediately into, I think this is what I need. I think you and I have conducted many interviews where we go in thinking we need one thing, and then after interviews and discussion and reflection, and we end up with, maybe actually this is what we needed, in the similar kind of budget range.
Yeah. And I'll just say that, fine, I said this before, and I think the more I think about it, the more it makes sense to me. Like, when in doubt, like, you know what, hire an agency to do a strategy for you. Pay the $5,000 to $10,000 that it's going to cost you to get a digital marketing blueprint done and really assess your needs and where you're at and what you want to develop, and develop a game plan, and then use that to help hire. Because, if you think about a $5,000 to $10,000 investment, and if you think about hiring somebody wrong and going through 3 to 6 months of it not working out, and then, basically 6 months to a year of essentially you've gone nowhere on your marketing, the cost of that is astronomical compared to the $5,000 to $10,000 investment in the strategy up front. And then I think you'll be much better positioned. So anyways, that's a side note.
No, I think it's important. I think about like the tactical plans that we build, and they're such great conversation starters, right? It's, essentially a list of a bunch of tactics and strategic components too that need to be done. And there are many examples I have. Actually, a good one, recent one, is Heritage Calgary, right? You go through a tactical plan with them, and they go, yeah, we have the resources in-house for this. We do for this. Oh, we don't for this. We need to think about this. Let's put it over here in this bucket, and let's see how we're going to tackle this in the long term. Then it's like, oh, we need to get this done. We don't have a skill set. Yes. Agency, can you take care of this? It just becomes that laundry list. And I think
much easier, right? When you're actually dealing with like real information and have good data to support your decision making.
Totally. Yeah. Cool. Well, that's it. Time to build a job description.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please like, share, and comment. We really appreciate it.